You're welcome to the Policy Council. My name is Okwemi Agbaje. In this edition, we look at power, national power that is, and integrity. How do we infuse integrity into our national politics? How do we deal with the issue of corruption? How do we bring, as we say, righteous men into power? There's a young man who has a lot of ideas on that, and as part of my continuing conversation with emerging youth leaders, he's my guest today. Enjoy the program. You're welcome back. It's still the Policy Council. My guest is a young man. I consider a youth leader of some sort. He's also an author because he has written a nice book, a book I found quite intriguing. Professionally, he's a lawyer, qualified as a lawyer in 2008. I've invited him so that we can share ideas on the book he's written and see how the thoughts he articulates in that book can be beneficial to the country. My guest is Kayode Adeniji. He's written a book called The Righteous Man in Power. You're welcome to the Policy Council.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get to know you first of all before we go into the book. I've heard that you founded some club when you were in SS2 or something. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it was in State High School, Oyewole, Agege. You know, that was the community where I grew up. And at that time, there was this general view that the best students were always science students. And teachers would come to our class and say that if you are not serious, I would transfer you to
art class.
They would be, telling science students, that. And so the general view was that if your GSS3 result, your junior WAEC result was very fantastic, you're eligible for science class. If it was very average, you go to commercial class. If it was very poor, you'll be in the arts department. Class. And at that time, there was a lot of discouragement by students, and they felt art class was for the dullards. So we said we should have a forum where our students could come together and discuss about those subjects that excites them. Because at that time, we didn't have a lot of inspiring teachers, especially for literature. To inspire the students. And we started the club, and we were taking ourselves on different art subjects, from literature to government to English language to Yoruba and all the other art subjects. And that was the original objective.
And you were in SS2?
I was in SS2. I was
15 years, how old were you?
Yeah, 15 years old. And we had to go to neighboring schools to ensure that the club was established. And within 6 months, like 5 schools joined us, because I had to go leave my school with my uniform. I'll go and address principals in their offices and tell them that this club exists in my school. I'd like this club to be in your school. And they'll look at me and say, how old are you? That when we were growing up, we used to know about a literary and debating club. And we told them that literary and debating club consists of a science student could be a member of literary and debating club, commercial, but this one is exclusively for art students. And we kicked off, and it's in about 30 schools now in Agege.
30 schools?
Government. Yes. So after writing WAEC, SS3 WAEC, I had like a year. I stayed at home waiting for admission. So I utilized the period to go around all of these schools, talk to students, because I believe that teenagers have real power. And I believe that at that stage there were things that you'll pick up and they will stay with you forever. And I was going around. I was like a teenage father to other students.
Interesting. So, and then you went to the Lagos State University to study law.
Yes.
And you were an official of the Law Students Society?
Yes. I became the General Secretary of the Law Society of the Faculty of Law, because I'd always believed that leadership is the need of the hour. Since my secondary school days. And even before I became the General Secretary, I would leave school on Friday, last Wajo, And I'll come back to Agege, the community, on Fridays to hold union meetings with the students.
With those your arts
Secondary school students. And a lot of my colleagues were wondering, why do you always go home on weekends and all of that? A lot of them didn't know that I had a passion back home, and that and the people I met on campus, they came from different backgrounds, and there was this struggle for everyone to influence another with what they were bringing from their, different homes. And I felt that no, there is a need to affect lives here on campus. And that was why I contested for the General Secretary of the Faculty of Law.
And how was that experience? What did you take away from it?
Wow, it was very interesting. I learned a lot. I learned about politics. In that, what happens on campus is like a microcosm of the entire society. And I was able to learn about loyalty, even religious intolerance, even on campus. I was able to learn about some of the tribal sentiments we harbor in this country. I saw a little bit of it on campus. So it was a lot of experience, for me. At that time, also, we had a lot of occult clashes. So I saw the entire society in that little space called Lagos State University.
Excellent. Let's take a short time out, and I'll come back with Kayode Adeniji, and we'll talk about the motivation for writing this book. Welcome back. It's still the Policy Council, and I still have a young man, interesting fellow, Kayode Adeniji. He's written a book called The Righteous Man in Power. Kayode, before we go into the book, they called you Abraham Lincoln at LASU. Why did they do that?
Okay. Before now, I used to have a lot of hair on my head.
By the way, that's a bit premature, yes, considering your age, isn't it?
Yes, I started getting bald around 19 years, and my mother was always complaining that I was reading too much. And I told her that this is genetic. Yeah, it was. But she felt that at 19 years, it shouldn't be happening. So in 100 level, 200 level, I had a lot of hair. So I kept a lot of it. And I read a lot of Abraham Lincoln's biographies written by a lot of people. And till today in America, the president that has a lot of biographies to his credit by other people is still the 16th president of the United States. And I found it very intriguing. And I read a lot of the books, and I didn't have any book of my own. I had a friend who had a library full of books while I was in school. His name is Benga, and he would bring all of these books, and we'll read in the hostel. And I read a lot of Abraham Lincoln's biographies. I read his Gettysburg Address. I could recite it. I read also Martin Luther King Jr. At that time, we were just reading different kind of books we could lay our hands on. And when I addressed my colleagues in class,
in election,
even in Lagos State, before the elections, I would always refer to Abraham Lincoln, and people just felt that this guy has the hair and everything.
Interesting, fascinating. And then you were also involved in a young lawyers thing. Tell me about that.
Yes. While I was practicing, I practiced a bit. I participated in the election for the MBA that brought in the SY chairman.
Lagos MBA.
Lagos MBA.
Yeah, he's been on the Policy Council too.
Okay, so we were appointed to join the committee for the Young Lawyers Welfare. Chief Woliola Nipekun had given a grant of 10 million naira to just support the young lawyers, and I was very passionate about young lawyers and some of the challenges they face in our society, and that was what led me to be on the committee, and it was a good experience.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to Righteous Man in Power. Why did you write this book?
While I was on campus also, I saw a lot of books about power. I saw books that gave admonitions about how to maintain power. That if you want to maintain power, you have to be brutal, you have to be wicked, you have to silence the opposition, that people must fear
Machiavellian.
you know, all of those. I didn't want to mention that so that there won't be a lawsuit. And I read all of those books and I'm like, this is not working for us in Nigeria. And I see a lot of people, you know,
Trying
reading
to do
that
those
book,
things.
trying to read it and apply
48
it.
laws of power.
You know, and I said, this is not going to work for our society. This is not what we need. And what we need is a righteous man in power. But I felt, okay, if we say that we need a righteous man in power, am I just going to, and I listened to a lot of motivational speakers saying that Nigeria will change, and everybody will shout in churches, and I'm like, it doesn't stop
How is
here.
it going to change?
How's it going to change with all of the just confessions and prayers? And I felt there must be a strategy to this. There must be some kind of revelation on how to move forward, practical and tactical steps towards it. And another reason I wrote the book, I wanted to write a classic, something that could stand the test of time. I was telling a friend of mine that I would like to, you know, to have a book that in 100 years to come, people will still say that we found it useful. And they said, you have to write it, maybe a fiction, so that you can get an award or something. And I said, I don't know, but this is how, the way I could conceive it. And I had to write it. The style is different. Also, during writing while I was writing the book, I also tried to consult people to see if I could get a foreword to the book. And they went forthcoming, and something just told me that this is the first time you're writing this kind of
book
thing.
Is being written.
And there was no consultation of any other book except for me to just sit, think, meditate on all the things I've learned over the years. I had the Bible by my side sometimes, and all of the things I've seen on TV in the society. I cannot really say that I wrote it because...
You believe it's some revelation?
Yes.
Okay. I tend to share that view because I've read the book. Let's take this short time out, and we'll be back and we'll go inside the book a little bit.
Government wants our city to become a mega modern city. And so, government is providing modern markets for us to carry out our business. Now, this requires money. So, we need to pay our taxes to help government to help us. I pay my taxes. I hope you've paid yours. I pay. Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back. It's the Policy Council. I am Okwayemi Agbaje. My guest is Kayode Adeniji, and we're talking about righteous man in power. So, Kayode, let's go inside the book a bit. Tell me about what was the thrust of the book? What message were you trying to deliver?
There's a French saying that says, toute nation a le gouvernement qu'elle mérite. It means that all nations have the government they deserve. And while I was putting the book together, I felt that sincere men should come together. That the reason why we have so much corruption and decadence is because the teamwork, the amount of, the volume of teamwork, consultation, caucus meeting going on in the midst of those who want to perpetuate power is so much. They work harder than sincere men. And you just see a lot of sincere men, they are intellectuals, and we don't seem to see the result of the amount of talent that we have in this country. There are a lot of people who are gifted, but there is no opportunity to express their gifts. And while evil is really getting stronger, the sincere men are getting weaker, isolated, and they all make discordant tunes against, like, you know, the fuel subsidy, everybody, you know. But right now the fuel subsidy has gone, and that era has gone, and everybody just seems to be quiet. And about the book, we're just saying that ensuring that the right man gets to power is a marathon. that must be powered by inspiration and not motivation. Because sometimes when you are motivated to do something, motivation has a lifespan. If you don't have incentives again, you'll be discouraged. But inspiration, you cannot be stopped because you have already concluded victory even before you venture out. So this book is just to let people know, those who are sincere, who want to take their own chance to ensure that we have an ideal society, to say, if you read it, it's like a manual to connect with other people rather than just brainstorming, to do things together. And I think the relationship that exists between those who perpetrate corruption is stronger than the relationship that exists between those who are sincere,
who are trying to do
who are trying to do good,
who are trying to transform or reform the
exactly
society.
Exactly.
Fantastic. I didn't want to go too deep into the book, but I noticed you talk about several models of building coalitions. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, let me talk about the Tudian model that we talked about in the book. The Tudian model is a model where the leader is not, you cannot really pinpoint the leader amongst a lot of people. Because in our own society, the leader is always very pronounced.
The big man.
Yes, so it is not, if we want to change a nation, you don't have to be very visible to lead. You don't have to have that position to lead. You don't have to be like the Kabio kind of form to lead the people. You can lead people who are as powerful as you are, and they will submit themselves to your directions and leadership. And there will be no envy, there will be no jealousy, because there is a covenant between everyone within the group. And the Tudian model is a very powerful model. A similar model to the Tudian model is the Spartan army. Before Christ, those periods before Christ, where 300 Spartan soldiers stood against the Persian king, and the Persian king was ready to crush them, and they said, according to the Spartan rule, it's no retreat, no surrender. You either give us victory or we die. Exactly. And those models are there for us to, even the example of the Martin Luther Kings. And you find all of those, and you just wonder why people are not really inculcating those cultures that we have seen that have made other people succeed, and ensure we apply it in our own society and ensure transformation.
Interesting. Let's take another time out, and then I'll be back with my final segment with Kayode Adeniji. I think if you want change in Nigeria, you should read the book. Righteous Man in Power. We'll be right back.
Who knows a be better thing? Abi who know like better thing? All these fine things where they see so. Now money government they take do now. Abi, I saying it's like, excuse me, I dey pay my tax. I dey do it, I dey pay my tax. Say you don't pay your own tax. If you pay your tax, I pay oh.
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back. It's the Policy Council, and it's my final segment with Kayode Adeniji. He has written a fascinating book, a book of revelation, he calls it, and I completely agree with him. So, Kayode, let's talk about practical politics now. You said you've written a practical manual. So, what's your view about Nigerian politics, about Nigerian democracy, and about the role of youths, young people like you, in it?
I think that, just like I said, all nations have the government they deserve. I think the issue of poverty needs to be really addressed. And you'll be shocked that, in my own view, I think the 70% of poor people in Nigeria are politicians. Because there is the fear of poverty, the fear of the unknown, and there is that greed to amass wealth. And I think that when you're always afraid of tomorrow, you would do a lot of things just to ensure that you maintain power, and then you know, silence opposition and do a lot of other things just to keep yourself in position of servanthood. And I also think that we need an army of civic obligation activists, not just human rights activists. You know, we hold on so much to our rights, and this is my right, this is my entitlement, give me this. Because during the military era, anyone who could come out and say the military is bad, no, just say no, and everybody will identify that person as the right person.
Yeah.
But right now we're in a democracy, and we need to build this country. And I've told people that in my own lifetime, I believe that Nigeria will be a world power, and that at least 5 African nations will be developed nations. And it sounds almost impossible, but I told people, what is there to dream that maybe I'll be a senior advocate of Nigeria, I'll be rich? They are small dreams. So I think in our polity, when we solve the problem of poverty of the mind, and all of our youths and those who are being used as, you know, thugs and all of that, will realize that those people who perpetrate, want to perpetuate themselves in power and who want to truncate our democracy, they cannot do that without you. And you have to realize that we have the power. Also, the government will not do everything for us. The government is there to provide, basic amenities, but the real development of our nation is in our own hands. I've seen a lot of elderly people throwing a sachet of pure water out of an exotic jeep. And you litter the streets, deplete the environment. The government is not to be blamed for some of the dirtiness we see around in our city. So there is a lot of things we're not getting right as a society, and we have to take responsibility. If the government has your road for you, you shouldn't burn tires on that road. A lot of people don't know that. That if you have a shop and you claim that you are spiritual, you believe in God, you don't need to bring all of your markets, all of your stock onto the road or the street for people to see and come to buy. And you say that you profess faith in God and you believe God can do everything. So there are so many things we're not getting right in this society. We also, and for some of the our workforce also, they need to really realize that one of the best ways to get a job or to succeed is to take any business as your own. When you take a business as your own, you make mistakes, but you almost never go wrong because you have already put yourself in the shoes of the owner of the business, and you can, succeed like that. I have so many thoughts. So
it's about individual transformation.
Exactly.
And
it's
then
about
societal
exactly. And our education is also something to really talk about, because especially our private universities. I look forward to private universities running courses that are specialized. If you want to be a school of journalism as a private university, focus on it. Or you are a youth, you want to go to study any course, you have to have something in mind before you go to school. You don't go to school to put something in your mind. You have to know what you want to do for the society, then go and acquire the knowledge that will enable you to do that. But our educational structure is so generic. Everybody wants to have all the faculties, they want to run all the departments, and we're all carrying certificates around. And I think that if we all focus and ensure that we have a common goal as a nation, tribalism will not have a place. Religious division will not have a place. So when we have a bigger dream to make Nigeria a world power, that will be like the strongest in Africa, all the other things will fall into place. And excellent. I think our leaders need
I won't let you go without autographing a copy of your book for me. I've read this one, but I've thoroughly defaced it. And like I said, I think many of our young people in particular should read the book.
I hope they do.
Excellent. So It's been the Policy Council. We'll be right back. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It's not been a fun conversation, it's been a sober conversation. But Kayode Adeniji says people get the government they deserve. Every nation gets the type of government they deserve. In short, we deserve the government that we have in Nigeria. I agree with him. Nigerians have to deal with the type of people they select into leadership, into politics, into governance at all levels, from the local councils, in the universities, in our social clubs, in our residents' associations, into government. He has written what he believes is a manual for a practical process of improving the quality of the people that govern us, that lead us, starting from the individual. I think it's a good book. I think it's a profound book. And I hope that as many of us as possible can read the book. But beyond the book, we must deal with the quality of leadership, the quality of individuals, the quality of the quantum of integrity that we infuse into our politics. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.